Hi friends, let's continue our discussion on di- communication between two computers. So here, the at the transmitting side, the data is generated, and this data may be generated using different apps. Like it may be app which records audio, or it may be an app which records video, or it may be a app which works with the text and all that. So we have different formats. So for each format, so we have different data. Okay, so we are now ready with the data. The data has come from different apps, and these apps have their own formats, and this has to be transmitted to the receiving side. On the receiving side, the data is received, and then it should be forwarded to the appropriate app so that it will be useful. Say if we transmit a text file, so then the text file may be created using, say, Notepad, or maybe WordPad, or maybe MS Word, and so other formats. So text file is created on different apps, and this text file is to be transmitted. So this text file is our data. So we have our data ready. So that's our data. Then, so whether the data is text, whether the data is audio, whether data is video, at the end, what it goes through the medium is zeros and ones, and what the receiver receives is zeros and ones, a sequence of zeros and ones. And at the end, these zeros and ones will make some sense only when it realizes the format of the data we have been transmitting. So if it is a text, then we need to say that it is a text. Then text means how many bits are used for each character and all that. So are we using ASCII code or any such thing that has to be defined? If it is an audio file, then we have to say uh, how many samples are there in a second, then each sample size is how many bits, and all that. All these details need to be decided, and they are decided by the apps which are creating this data, and they have their own formats, and this format has to be made known to the receiving end that yes, this is the format with which this data is being transmitted. Done. So if we talk about a text file, so it will be created on a notepad and stored as some .txt file, and that file is transmitted, and this file becomes one packet, and this packet will be added with the proper format details, and that has to be transmitted. So when it comes to the receiving end, depending on the format, appropriate app is identified, and that is forwarded to that. So when you try to open that file, whatever file you get, if it is text file, then it is redirected to the notepad, and through notepad the file is available to you. If it is a audio file, some audio system is activated, and this data is sent to the audio device with this format, saying that you run the audio system at this sample rate, and each sample will have this much data and all that. So at that, this is what we have, So we need some way of deciding this, okay, how much size of data should be used in at one step, and how the format should be represented and all that done. So that's one thing we need to look at. Then the second thing is to whom you are sending. If it is wired, then okay, there is a direct connection from the transmitter to receiver. One connection is there. So there's nothing to worry much. So just send the data through this wire. It will definitely be received by the receiver. But if it is transmitted through free space wirelessly, then there are many receivers which can receive this signal. Then you should make sure that it is received by the appropriate receiver only. So for that, you need to put two more details, the addresses from where this data is coming and to where this data is going. So in all, we have one structure where we have data. This data will also contain the necessary code for error detection or correction as per your requirement. So either error detection or error correction codes are added to this, and then the format is added, and to and from addresses are added, and that is sent on the network. When it is received by the receiver, it first looks at to address. So if the to address is itself, then it gets the whole data and then looks at what format it is and what data it is, and that it forwards to the appropriate app. And if the receiver what is receiving it, its address doesn't match with the to address, then this whole packet is just neglected and nothing is done with this. So thereby all other systems just neglect this even after receiving it. Only the correct receiver will act upon it and find the format sent to the appropriate app. There is another option that this receiver and transmitter may not be directly connected, so they may be connected through some network. So in that case, so this address will help us in forwarding the packet to the appropriate receiver. So when it is transmitted, it is received by this, it sees the address, so it finds that it doesn't belong to it, so it forwards in the correct direction, and then this one sees it doesn't belong to it, forwards on the direction, then doesn't belong to this, so this forwards it, doesn't belong to this, so this forwards finally to the receiver, and this receiver understands that it belongs to it, so it uses this packet. So that's how the whole structure is created before transmitting. How these all are done, what are the various ways of communication, so we need to look in, and that's going to follow in our coming sessions.